Hades 2 is a simply incredible game, but it's by far worst trait, and the biggest piece of discussion point is going to be that ending with this game. This is what this game is going to be remembered by. Hades 1 was known for its story, and of course Hades 2 is going to be compared against its story too. And despite the issues I have with this ending, I will still say I highly recommend this game. Heck, I would still say Hades 2 might be the better overall game, but there's just some major issues I have with how this game tells the story. So let's talk about it. But before I talk about why this ending fundamentally does not work, let's talk about the ending of the first game, and why it was so perfect. Hades 1 was a family drama, centered around the family of Hades. You see, Zagreus wanted to see his mom, and the whole plot is basically just him finding his way out of the underworld to go see her again, and he eventually convinces her to go back to the underworld, making their family whole once again. On the surface, that's a really simple story, but the thing that makes it so special is how the gameplay aids the story, and how strong the characters are. You see, Hades is a roguelike, meaning it's guaranteed you're going to die a couple of times since you suck at the game. But each time, you're not only going to be getting stronger through permanent buffs, but also naturally through just playing the game a lot. With Zagreus' main goal being so personal to him, you truly feel his plight. Every time he dies, he's getting closer and closer to his goal. And it's clear he's not going to give up under any circumstances. This makes him not only likable, but incredibly fun and interesting to follow. Another thing I love is how characters react to your journey. To keep this section short, I'm only going to highlight one character, that being the main antagonist of the game, Hades. Seeing him slowly come around to Zagreus and eventually standing down before his mother returns, it's honestly really beautiful, and it's a great arc for the character to have. You really get a sense of how Hades regrets his actions and what he's done. There are so many other things similar to this in the story, with each of the countless side characters. It's all great. Now let's talk about how Hades 2 is worse in every way in its story. Fun. Hades 2 in comparison to Hades 1 tells a far more grand story. Instead of being a boring old family drama, this is a family drama where everyone gets killed and tortured. My favorite. The main villain this time is Kronos, the Titan of Time, and he is taking over the underworld and wreaked havoc upon Mount Olympus. And I love him, before the ending at least. He's one of those villains who truly holds no remorse for his actions, and he believes he is correct for what he has done. He feels wronged by the gods and the world at large, so now he'll take it back in the most gruesome way possible. It's super cool, and you really start to hate him. He shows no remorse whatsoever, thus you get why Melanie has trained so long to defeat him. Melanie had her whole family taken away from her by this man. Thus, with each run, you feel her anger and determination to slay him. It's really cool. I love this side of the story a ton. I would personally say I prefer the first game setup a bit more, but man, this is still incredible. However, this is only one half of the story. You see, Hades 2 has two distinct routes you can go on, the underworld route and the surface route. In terms of story, the surface route is a bit weaker. Typhon is a legion of Kronos and is taking over Mount Olympus. And I know why Melanie wants to get rid of Typhon. I mean, the people on the summit are basically screwed if they live there. And her family that lives there too, they're also kind of screwed by him. But her family is also relatively safe on Mount Olympus, meaning you just don't care as much as you do when it comes to the underworld side of the story, because there's not as many personal stakes. On Olympus, none of the gods are being actively tortured. At most, every night they just have to fight off Typhon. But her father is being in chains. Her brother doesn't even really exist anymore, same with her mother, trapped in a space between time. Also, once you beat the route and see them, it's not nearly as emotional when you get to see your brother, nor nearly as plot relevant. It feels like this should be the bigger part of the story, but feels less potent and less emotional. But that's enough talking about the setup. Now let's talk about the real problem with this ending. At the end of each run in the underworld, you get to meet with the past version of Zagreus, just after the ending of the first game, before Kronos ever took hold. Heck, the discussion of Kronos even coming back was never even a thought. Melanie and him discuss a plan to get rid of Kronos once and for all, and at first the interactions with him are really pleasant, if a bit less emotional than the first game. In the first game, each time you cleared the game, you got to meet with Zagreus' mother, and there's something so bittersweet about it. Sure, Zagreus is finally able to see his mother after all this time, but each time they're meaning to cut so painfully short. But here, you just don't get that same sense. You hardly feel a bond between Melanie and Zagreus in the same way you did with Zagreus and his mother in the first game. And also, the plan to get rid of Kronos is a bit convoluted. Anything involving time travel is going to be hard to follow, but that's not the main issue. The main issue is how Zagreus wants to spare Kronos. Now, I've seen a lot of people say that this is completely, flat out of character for Zagreus to want this, but I honestly disagree. I feel like it's a little bit of a reach for his character, yes, and I can see him at least thinking it for a bit. Zagreus in the first game hated his father at first, but throughout his journey, he saw the good in him. Thus, with Kronos, it's reasonable that Zagreus would have the same thoughts, but there's a lot of problems with him making this assumption. For one, he doesn't know Kronos, and has only heard bad things. He personally never got a chance to meet Kronos, and any knowledge he has from him is from Melonaway, someone who's told him he has zero remorse for what he's done, someone who's kidnapped his entire family, and heck, kidnapped him, so it's unreasonable for Zagreus to even think he should be spared. And secondly, Haze wasn't as bad as Kronos. His father, though not always kind, gave Zagreus a place to stay and still raised him. He also wasn't basically the god version of Hitler. So I wonder which one's more redeemable, a flawed dad or that. But the bigger issue is how he treats Melonaway for thinking otherwise. It comes across that the game's beating the idea over your head that Zagreus is right here and Melonaway is in the wrong. There's no room for discussion. We are right, you are wrong. If you side with Melonaway, you're just a bad person like her. Zagreus is clearly right here, and I really hate this sentiment. For one, it's out of character for him not to at least hear Melonaway out, but he just doesn't come across as giving a shit. You could argue he's in character for Zagreus, but like, come on. It's also just annoying how the game forces this idea of redeeming Kronos down your throat. It feels so strange. In Haze 1, there's so much room for discussion about the characters and their wants, their interests, and what their intentions were. This game, it just tells you flat out that Kronos is redeemable and you're wrong for thinking otherwise. It just feels like bad writing. And speaking of Kronos, and also bad writing, yeah, as I've been saying this whole time, the main solution to the plot is that Kronos is going to be redeemed. Now, to explain why this plot does not work, I'm going to break down what it takes to be a good redemption arc, and compare Kronos against another character who gets redeemed, Goro Akechi from Persona 5. Yes, this video is just an excuse to talk about this game. In my opinion, the 5 things that make a good redemption arc are having the villain display some moments of kindness, having the main character or other characters have some want to save him, have some sort of trouble upbringing that explains his actions reasonably, have the villain not make completely irredeemable choices, and have the character sacrifice something to be redeemed. Goro Akechi is one of the major antagonists in Persona 5. He kills people by entering their minds, and he's killed quite a few people, but he's not all bad. He's shown multiple times throughout the story that he cares a great deal about the Phantom Thieves, especially Joker. In a lot of ways, heck, there's an implied romance between them. It shows a lot of the humanity in him and shows he's not all bad. Kronos, on the other hand, does not have this. At most, we get a flashback to an alternate universe, which, by the way, by having an alternate universe, this is not Kronos. This is a different character. This is not Kronos. You can't redeem a character by showing off a different character. That's not how it works. And though this alternate flashback is nice and all, again, it's not the same character, but it's only one nice scene. It doesn't do anything to effectively communicate more of what a nice version of Kronos would even be. In Persona 5, the other characters don't want Akechi dead. The Phantom Thieves' whole shtick is that they don't want anyone dead. They instead choose to save the people they go after. And thus, since the other characters don't hate him absolutely and don't want him dead, you also don't want him dead. Melonaway hates everything about Kronos. Heck, everyone does. Even when he's spared and shows he's not that bad of a guy, everyone still hates him, except for Zagreus. And since Zagreus is a character you hardly get to see, you are gonna naturally buy into everyone else's assumptions, and also want Kronos dead. In Persona 5, Akechi is the son of Shido, and he's not a good guy at all. Akechi wants him dead for how poorly he has been treated by him. So there's actually a good backstory for why Akechi is a big evil guy. But on the other hand, you feel nothing for Kronos. Kronos, in most mythologies, is a really, really bad guy. As I said, he's basically the Hitler of the gods. He used to rule over the land before being told by Oracle that his kids were gonna kill him. So to avoid this, he eats them. Yes, this is his plan, to eat his kids. But Zeus escapes, and Kronos technically seals his own fate. If he just didn't eat his kids, they wouldn't have done this, but whatever. And Kronos' remains are spread across Tartarus. This is why he wants revenge in the main story. But here's the thing, he was doing only bad things in his backstory. There's no, oh, he had a bad upbringing, oh, he had a bad dad. There's no any of that. He had everything, all of the control. And the only reason he did anything different is because the Oracle said, dude, you're gonna lose everything. Heck, his prophecy that he was so fearful of was self-fulfilling. He did this to himself. You don't feel any empathy for him. In Persona 5, Akechi is a big evil murder man, yes. But in comparison to Kronos, his actions seem like nothing. Kronos enslaves an entire family, throws both the underworld and surface world into disarray, and kills probably everyone in the city of Rifa and countless others. Let me put it this way, Akechi maybe at most killed 100 people. Still a lot, but in comparison to Kronos probably killed people in the thousands, and tortured even more. But all these other categories don't matter that much. The most important one is that the character sacrifices something to make up for the damage they've done. Akechi sacrifices his own life to save the fam thieves, basically throwing away everything for them. It's a really good scene, because not only is he throwing away his own life, but also throwing away his chance to get back as Shido. Kronos doesn't sacrifice anything. He just has to give up control of the House of Hades and the Overworld. He doesn't lose any of the powers he had before this. Heck, it's arguably he's now in a better spot, because now he's not hunted every night to death, he's allowed to live out the rest of his immortal life as a happy grandpa. He doesn't lose anything, unlike Akechi who lost everything. It makes it so frustrating that the game portrays this as a good thing to spare him, when really, this is the best case scenario for him, and he doesn't have to give up anything. Kronos making no sacrifice whatsoever makes his redemption feel so hollow. Heck, there is no redemption. He didn't get to redeem himself in any way. He just said, I'm not bad anymore, and that was it. My lord. In the end, it's hard to feel like by accomplishing this story, we accomplished anything. The ending feels so thrown together. And with the only reason Kronos is being spared is the fact that he could have been good. That's the reason. This is just a disappointing way to end the story. It feels out of nowhere, the redemption feels hollow, characters are just completely different people, and at the end, it's just as a far cry from the incredible, perfect story that was Hades 1. Hades 2 is not a bad game, but its story is bad. I'm sure the most discussion behind this game is going to be this ending. This is what this game's going to be remembered by ultimately, because it leaves such a bad taste in the player's mouth. But anyways, it's been real, and still go buy the game. It's still like one of the best games of the year. Heck, it still is the best game of the year. This game's incredible.